excuse me. Sorry, I just got a problem in my computer. This is what shapes the topics of this gathering as well. I'm just repeating, and will bring discussions, opinions, sharing knowledge and experiences. Subjects as disaster risk reduction in museums, prevention of illicit cultural objects, preventive conservation in museums collection, and museum role in achieving sustainable development goals. Briefly should be added that all these subjects are the most important matters, and if the main aim and responsibility be to make a better future for next generations, healthier world, safer and more secure, then visions need to be expanded. Difficult actions and decisions should be taken in the routine of museums' daily life in order to long-term plans and implementation. These various topics, like a chain link, are very connected. One by one, they have a great role in order to manage our cultural heritage sectors, museums, and institutions in better, safer, more professional ways for our community, wider society, and of course for our future generations. International Council of Museums, ICOM, as one of the most common and prestigious organizations among museum professionals, just in this year, celebrated its 75th anniversary of existence, 50th anniversary of supporting and protecting cultural heritage, side by side of UNESCO, and the 1970 convention, also 20 years of preparing red lists. ICOM, according to its code of ethics, internal rules, statutes, and its policies, has been one of the most practical, informative organizations from the beginning of its existence. It has been committed to collaborate with cultural heritage sectors to support museums, institutions through its missions to prepare materials, tools, or building capacities in many aspects with the aim of raising awareness and to provide better conditions in protecting cultural heritage. ICOM has an enriched background and an active role in this mission. For instance, helping countries with serious issues since the year 2000 when it started to prepare and publish red lists besides many other activities which can be taken as the result of ICOM international efforts to protect cultural properties and to take action against the illegal trade. According to ICOM, red lists should consider, sorry, can you please go back to the second slide? Red list should consider a database of the types of cultural goods that are deemed to be the most vulnerable to illicit traffic. These lists are made available to national police and customs authorities by Interpol and the World Customs Organizations, as well as to museums, auction houses, and galleries. They are intended to help users to identify the kinds of artifacts that may have been stolen or smuggled so that they can be returned to their rightful owners if an attempt is made to sell them illegally. Regards to ICOM information until now, ICOM produced many of these booklets, more than 15, for different countries and their cultural goods or antiques at risk. Those are related to Asian countries, Latin and Central America, West or North of Africa, and so on. The vast work of Red List until now has done with the scientific collaboration of national and international experts and the support of dedicated sponsors to cover the most vulnerable areas of the world in terms of illicit trafficking of culture. It is necessary to add accessible and available to ICOM.
Sorry, Madam Golsabahi. I ask your pardon, just a second, please. Could you please mute yourself, sir? Because of the high number of participants, I cannot see you. Thank you very much. Please go ahead, Madam Golsabahi.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. In the field of protection cultural heritage, our common globally organization, ICOM, has also other activities such as international observatory on illicit traffic in cultural goods or emergency preparedness and response. According to Article 1.6 and 2.21 of ICOM Code of Ethics for Museums, museums should protect their collections against natural and human-made disasters. To address this issue, ICOM develops programs and raise awareness on heritage in danger and post-disaster situations. Establishment of Disaster Risk Management Committee, or DRMC, please go to next slide, please.
Sure.
Is one of those. Yeah, thank you. A standing committee which started its mandate from 2020 and it will continue until 2022. Also, establishment of International Committee on Disaster Resilient Museums, or again DRMC, which started its mandate in 2019. DRMC as a standing committee gathers museum-related professionals to help countries in need to be face-to-face with cultural heritage emergencies. It dedicated to emergency situation response following major natural and human-made disasters, as well as during and after military conflicts.
Let's wait a little bit. I think there is a problem. Madam Golsabahi, could you hear us? All right. I think she will be reconnecting. I see that she dropped. I think she's trying to reconnect again. Thank you for your patience. These things happen, unfortunately. See that she's not back. Well, at this point, I need to take my liberty to perhaps ask our next, yes, just a second, she's back.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead, please.
Yeah, please accept my apologies.
No problem, no problem.
Instead of Zoom platform. Yes, I was talking about International Committee of DRMC with the mission to serve global museums is an effective, inspiring, instrumental, and cooperative international committee Its goals and objectives from 2019 to 2022 is to increase awareness about the importance of disaster risk management and museums within ICOM, and to identify opportunities for collaboration with other stakeholders, organizations in the field of cultural heritage and disaster response, also to provide a mechanism among the museum community for the dissemination of information, resources, training opportunities, and professional networking about disaster risk management. There are many informative and practical materials produced by these committees, also useful information which can be found in ICOM website. Very briefly, I remind you our great ICOM General Conference 2019 in Kyoto, Japan, and the pre-conference workshop Drmc International Committee prepared in order to raise museums' professional knowledge. As a witness and participant there, I truly could realize how essential are those knowledge for every museum's cultural heritage sectors, historical sites, and for museums professionals as well. So, with the assist of both committees, with skilled personnel and raising knowledge, can be possible that we witness of tragic accidents in our beloved cultural historical properties, such as fire disaster in Tabriz Old Bazaar in Iran, as one of the oldest one of its kind in the region, or fire disaster in precious Brazilian museums, which destroyed vast collections, or fire disaster in Notre Dame, as one of the saddest ones, which damaged our collective memory we had from stories and by its unique art and architecture. After all, regards to what surrounds our beautiful world, natural disaster risks, instabilities, man-made disasters, conflicts, wars, the common goal and mission for all of us, for sure, would be to expand responsibilities in order to lead all in the path of the sustainable developed future. Speaking about sustainable development, should be added that according to the United Nations World Commission, please go to the next slide. And environment development in 1983, sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Then, regards to all efforts and hard works in the most professional way on this particular matter, by agreement of 193 members of the United Nations in September 2015, the Sustainable Development Goals, as the most ambitious global program ever, started to address a wide range of social and environmental challenges in order to set the world on a road to a sustainable future by 2030, which its main perspectives are to provide resources, preparing better health conditions, safety, security, and justice in many ways, such as equal condition in order to learning or education, or equal opportunities for members of the societies, observing environmental changes, and help to protect it from many inappropriate effects. But why this blueprint is so essential related to cultural heritage sectors such as museums, why museums would have a great role for this roadmap achievement. We are museums and cultural heritage sectors. We need to plan for these landscapes as we committed to our duties related to promote our communities and societies' empowerment in general. Museums and museum professionals are the most trusted public institution or experts whose abilities and functions can play an important role in creating a sustainable society. The museum is an institution that can reflect different subjects as a container, so it can work in different aspects such as environment, history, culture, art, and industry. This feature gives the museum a thematic scope. On the other hand, the role museums playing as reminders, protectors of collective memories of communities, as interpreters of nations' cultural heritage, donate a great function to these sectors to build a sustainable society. Besides, museums are able to contribute with cultural diversity and pluralism of communities. So this and many more are what museums can do in our world, and all these abilities and potentials make them as strong arms for sustainable development goals. In 2015, UNESCO highlighted the strong connections between museums and sustainable development. Briefly, it is the protection and promotion of cultural and natural diversity are major challenges of the 21st century. In this respect, museums and collections constitute primary means by which tangible and intangible testimonies of nature and human cultures are safeguarded. This recommendation draws the attention of member states to the importance of protection and promotion of museums and collections so that they are partners in sustainable development through the preservation and protection of heritage, the protection and promotion of cultural diversity, the transmission of scientific knowledge, the development of educational policy, lifelong learning and social cohesion, and the development of the creative industries and the tourism economy. This will give museums opportunities to form new collaborations with government, industry, academies, and community, and create public value from new forms of partnership. Equally, the framework can help to identify common interests across different areas of museums or cultural sectors, helping to drive cross-disciplinary partnerships, collaboration, and innovation in pursuit of the sustainable development goals, and helping partners access and create funding opportunities. As representative of the global museum community, ICOM vision is a world where the importance of natural and cultural heritage is universally valued. ICOM believes that museums offer an existing global infrastructure. They are uniquely placed to facilitate collective action by building networks, raising public awareness, and supporting research and knowledge creation. Then, according to this, in 2018, it established a working group on sustainability to help advance ICOM's contributions to sustainability and sustainable development. As the result of working group activities, the resolution number 1, adopted by the General Assembly in Kyoto 2019, calls museums to rethink their values and strategies, use the Agenda 2030 as a framework, strive for their empowerment and communities, and reducing environmental impact. With this landmark decision, ICOM has committed the entire community to implementing the objective of Agenda 2030. As the last word, we, as museum professionals and cultural heritage sectors, especially in some regions with enriched history and culture, always are facing with illegal activity, conflict, illicit traffics of culture, historical goods, and so on. I hope this fruitful 4-day conference with these useful topics help us to jointly move forward to or for a brighter and more sustainable developed future. Thank you very much for all your attention.
Thank you very much, Madam Golsabahi, for this very informative talk.
Thank you.
Now it's time to invite, to give the floor to Professor Dr. Zeynep Ünal, the Vice President of ICOMOS-ICORP, Turkey. Before I have to stop sharing the presentation of Madam Golsabahi. Okay. I think you are able to see the presentation of Professor Ünal.
Is it okay?
I think it is okay. Yeah, I can see it. So please.
Okay, great.
Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Professor ÇAKAN, and all the colleagues joining today to the International Virtual Conference on Museums. I'm very honored to be in here with you, even virtually. I think only the positive thing with this C-19 crisis is we can see the experts from Pakistan, Malaysia, Mali, and Turkey in the same screen, while in reality we are thousands of miles away from each other. I think this platform is a good opportunity to speak about cultural heritage, to speak about museums, to speak about making the heritage visible, and to speak about how we can mitigate the destructive effect on disaster on museums. I think undoubtedly important progress has been made in the protection and management of museum staff, visitors, museum buildings, and objects. Our resources and knowledge provides an important opportunities for museums to preserve, exhibit, and meet the visitors and researchers in a safe place. Despite all these positive developments, increase in the frequency of natural and human-induced disaster in the world and the expansion of their destructive effect have also affected the museum. Especially what we define as a conflict are changing shape today. We are not only talking about war, but talking about the hybrid war, talking about kinetic operations, talking about terrorist attacks means intentional destruction. Today, we see archaeological sites looted on an industrial scale for financing the terrorism. For this region, the issue of reducing the disaster risk in museums is essential. The most important factor that will increase the success in disaster risk management of museums is that the relevant organizations of all countries put effort into these studies with the cooperation of their respective tools. Reason, we see the guidelines of disaster risk reduction in museums led by KUMID and cooperation with organizations as a concrete indicator of these efforts. At the same time, KUMID's endeavor is an important indicator of how important NGOs play a role in this issue. I would like to continue this part of my speech, a bit of talking about the organization ICOMOS-ICORP that I belongs to, which carries out the studies on disaster risk management. I will represent a bit today. As you know, ICOMOS is one of the UNESCO's advisory body. The structure is also the NGO. According to last number, we have more than 10,000 members, expert members in 150 countries. And we have 110 national committee, will be 111 soon. And 28 scientific committee, that's ICORP is one of them. And what is ICORP is doing? And we all work for the disaster risk preparedness. We are monitoring the situation in all the times, I mean the silent times and the disaster times, reporting to UNESCO and all the relevant organizations the results, and working on the preventive measure on strategical, operational, and tactical level. And our key role is promote the protection of cultural heritage place from effect of natural disaster and armed conflict. And in our umbrella, we have right now 79 professionals from 35 countries, and they are experiencing various aspects of disaster mitigation, response, and recovery of cultural heritage. We have an architects, art historians, archaeologues, and as well as security experts, counterterrorism experts in our member profile. We are leading two kind of projects in our committee. We divided into two. This is one is projects that we are leading in silent times, and the one is the emergency times. In silent times, we are more concentrate on the training, capacity building, like Drmc, and organizing meetings, conferences, and publications. Then in this way, we are trying to reach more communities. But in emergency times, and we are working on information share in emergency. This is
Sorry, Ünal. Mr. Mohammed, could you please mute yourself? Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
okay,
I
thank
did
you.
it myself. I did it myself.
It's okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. And we are working on especially the emergency response phase, like helping to the emergency response in salvage rescue, shoring of the heritage buildings, and this kind of response. And we are giving a training in emergency for emergency response. And after the emergency is finalized for the first phase of the response, second phase of the response, situation assessment, need assessment, and damage assessment, what we are leading. And this is one of some of example from our publications and organizations that we organize and sharing. And this is one of the training course for the Istanbul World Heritage Site Management Directorate for a 10 days course for disaster risk management, first response, and also the field exercise. And also for raising the awareness in the sister brother organizations and the countries. This is one of our projects. You can rescue heritage, what take place in UNESCO 14th session of the committee. And of course, we are all working on the international and interdisciplinary organizations. I just wanted to share two small examples from our works. And one of them is, this example is an exercise with the European MODEX. And this is a collaboration between the search and rescue groups and the ICOM and ICOM-Turkey during the human search and rescue exercise. And they had one injection last year for the rescue the heritage during the humanitarian response. I would like to share the very short video with you. The part is related with the rescue of the artifact. Okay, there's also, I would like to share the good news. Our project with UNESCO, ICOM and ICORP is almost finalized. Probably or hopefully next year around these times, all search and rescue groups will take a training for response to heritage sites. And the guideline is prepared, and now the UNESCO and INSARAG working on the final revision of that. Actually, Today I happy to learn that I was not actually intend to add this part in my presentation, but I learned that our colleague and my dear friend, President of ICOMOS-Pakistan, Fauzia Qureshi, in this session will share the backstage of documentary film in Pakistan. And this is one of our projects, is actually ICORP on the Road project. And for almost 2 years, we started 2018. We are filming all around the world how our colleagues respond to disaster, just after the disaster or during the disaster. And we like to share transmit the efforts given by and contribution of experts and the local communities to the rehabilitation works in cultural heritage sites. And some of them is natural disaster, some of them is human-induced disaster. This is our team working on this project, and we did till today. We did episodes in Nepal after Gorkha earthquake and Diyarbakir, Turkey, Pakistan after the conflict in the area, and India for Kartarpur corridor, the new corridor between India and Pakistan recently opened, and the Mali destruction of World Heritage sites and the artifacts, and also Brazil, the Mariana Dam disaster, how affected the heritage. And it was great actually to work in there, to work with the colleagues and learn the inspiring stories, how they protect the heritage during the conflict times, putting their life in danger, and how they rescue the artifacts during the attack and transfer from SWAT Museum to Taxila Museum. And I know that dear Fauzia will show the background, and I just wanted to show a little part from the, actually, she will show the background, but I want to show what is happening in front.
However, there were a group of people who wanted to take on the challenge and solve that target was blasted. The face of the Buddha was filled with dynamite and blown up. That's when people who revered their culture realized that these militants in business and they're out to kill not us, but our culture.
Professor Ünal, I think the video is loaded, so we cannot hear the words, the talk.
You did not, okay.
There's no problem. We have seen the images. That's already very good enough.
Thank you very much. And maybe I can share, if it's okay. Can you hear the voice or not?
At least I was not able to hear the narrator in the video.
I see.
It gave a certain flavor for sure. And
okay.
In the afternoon, we will be seeing the.
You will be here more, and you will see the background, how the project take place, and maybe Fauzia can explain the very inspiring stories of the museum employees, how they protect their heritage. And I would like to thank you once more for inviting me to your very important events, and I wish you success in next 3 days. Thank you very much.
It's an honor to have you here. Thank you very much, Professor Ünal. I would like to extend a little warning, well, a note actually, not a warning. You can always write on the chat the questions or comments you have for each presenter. That also includes the previous 6 presenters, the welcome speakers and the inaugural speakers. Later on, please count on me that your comments and questions or your criticisms will be delivered to those persons, okay? And this is also valid from now on as well. Now, I would like to have 5 minutes before we go to our session, to our next session, to do some fine adjusting from our sides. The time is, actually the Turkish time is 12, is noon. So let's meet at 10 past 12. Please, you know, convert the time to your local times. So in about 9 to 10 minutes, we will be back and we will be hearing some other speakers on risk mitigation. So hope to see you in let's say 6 or 7 minutes. Thank you very much. Please stay connected because it may be difficult for you to reconnect. Now that you have the connection, please stay there. Now, I guess we can start a little bit earlier. I was trying to maximize my time to have the fine tuning done, but I'm fine. So let's do not lose time. If you are okay, we will continue our session. Now the title of the session is risk. Let me copy it just a second. The title is risk reduction or risk mitigation, disaster risk mitigation or reduction. Our first speaker in this session is Mrs. Saadet Güner, the president of KUMID. Let me just share a couple of words about her, with your permission. Mrs. Güner actually is a retired person from economy commerce area. She was working in a bank, and then she became the president of KUMID, and she's an active person in the field of cultural heritage in Turkey. She's running or helping EU projects, trying to bring funding to the NGO that she's leading, and she's trying to coordinate as best as she can, and I think with very high success, the projects that KUMID is handling for the moment. She will be speaking on a certain EU project for disaster risk mitigation in museums. Within the frame of this project, KUMID published a guide on disaster risk reduction in museums. So if she is ready, I want to give the floor to Mrs. Güner to deliver her speech. The floor is yours, Mrs. Güner.
Okay, sorry. Could you turn on my microphone, please?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. Do you hear me?
Yes, we all
Yes,
hear
okay.
you. We all hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. During my presentation, I'm very glad to summarize our EU project, Disaster Risk Reduction in Museums applied within the scope of the European Union Civil Society Organization, an academic cooperation support program implemented under the support of the European Union and Civil Society Development Center is SDGM in Turkey. What can I share? Sorry, there is a problem.
No problem. Take your time. We have enough time.
Okay.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Objective of the project is to prepare a guide in Turkish that contains the basic principles of how to reduce non-structural risk with regard of minimizing disaster risk in museums, and to publish it in print and digitally. The output of the project in Turkish, a guide on disaster risk reductions in museum 2020, has published in December 2020. Beneficiary of the project, the leader of the project was our association KUMID. Academic partner was Istanbul Aydın University Disaster Training Application and Resource Center. IFOM. An academician partner was Associate Professor Dr. Mahmut Aydın, member of KUMID from Batman University. He is among us. And another research team of the project consists of KUMID members, academicians, experts, and academician experts, AFAM, an academician partner of the project, Associate Professor Dr. Mahmut Aydın. In addition, the president of the Archaeologists Association in Turkey, İlkay Evgin, was included the research team as independent researcher, each of whom is an eminent expert in their field. For example, from research team, Professor Dr. Selçuk Yaşar Şener, Associate Professor Dr. Fatma Banu ÇAKAN, independent researcher, İlkay Evgin, etc. They are among us. Thank you very much for your kind participation. The first, only, and one meeting, the project was held at KUMID office in Istanbul, 27 and 28 February in 2020. At the meeting, the criteria, the topics, and the resource to be utilized that need to be considered in the preparation of the guide were discussed, and the roadmap was determined. Oh. Sorry. From March to September, COVID-19 outbreak has become widespread in Turkey and affected negatively social, cultural, and economic life, and restrictions imposed for the public health in parallel with these developments have caused the suspension of the project implementation from March 2020. Between March and September 2020, the research team continued to work voluntarily on this subject to prepare a draft text for a guide. The project implementation was started by EU and in October 2020. Then our partners of the projects and researchers came together at the online meeting to finalize the text of the guide and made it ready for the publication. Now, let me summarize this project and its outputs. Destruction of disaster, whose frequency harm to social, cultural, and economic life in Turkey and in the world, mainstream now has harms to the right of the protection of the cultural heritage and access to cultural heritage rights. For this reason, we should have a guide in Turkish that guides use to reduce natural disasters and man-made disasters that threaten our cultural assets. We carefully protect and keep for our present, for future generation. Therefore, project partners and research team have joined forces and experience in this small budget project to create a guide on disaster risk reduction in Museum 2020. This is our guide cover, first and last cover of our publication in Turkish. As you know, handbook First Aid for Cultural Heritage in Times of Crisis 1 and First Aid Application Kit in Times of Crisis 2, published in 2018 by the ICOM and Prince Claus Fund for Culture and Development in order to protect and save the museum staff, visitors, museum buildings, and artifacts after possible disaster. In order to realize these practices during and after crisis, our museum had to do pre-disaster risk reduction in studies first. In the related substances in the related articles of the 11th Development Plan published by the Presidency of the Republic of Turkey Strategy and the Budget Chairmanship in July 2015, that reads, it will be answered that our cultural heritage at home, abroad is protected by taking into account the disaster risk, and the cultural and natural properties in Istanbul are made resistant to disasters. We believe that this guide will contribute to the planning to achieve the aim included these related substances in those articles. Okay. One question, why KUMID is one of the national civil society organization in Turkey in the studies disaster risk reduction to protect cultural heritage? The answer of this question is in the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015-2030. As you know, at a meeting held in Sendai, Japan in 2015, the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction was adopted. In short, the Sendai Framework also provides reference to the protection of culture and heritage frameworks and highlights the important role to be played by the civil society organization in this content. Since its establishment, KUMID was involved in many EU projects or carried out different activities in its own related to this project. Finally, KUMID realized the task given to the non-governmental organization within the Sendai framework. In this part of my presentation, I would like to summarize here the core principle we learned from the project and its guide. We learned that, number one, every country should be ready for all kinds of disaster and should prepare risk management plan for primary and secondary risk. What is this primary and secondary risk? For example, an earthquake considered as a primary risk in a region, in a country, and in a museum, for a museum. And fires occurred after the earthquake is recognized as a secondary risk. So we should prepare a risk management plan for primary and secondary risks. Another example from our country, for example, earthquake in tsunami in İzmir Seferihisar occurred in October 2020. An old woman drowned, and during the tsunami, his death was caused by the tsunami in Turkey, recognized as the first death because of this kind of disaster. For example, we cannot imagine the tsunami after the earthquake in our country, for our country. For example, after the earthquake, earthquake and tsunami demolished the historical Seljuk Castle and Kaleçe houses in Seferihisar, building by the orders of Ottoman Sultan Süleyman the Magnificent between 15th were negatively affected. you can see the flute and the Seljuk Marina and the historical houses, streets, and the walls, the destruction of the Seljuk Castle walls due to tsunami and earthquake. Team of ICOMOS-ICORP Turkey came to Seferihisar to monitor the destruction of the historical Seljuk Castle. The team invited KUMID members in Izmir to accompany their monitoring visits. Information and documents were shared with the team. So, in conclusion, this fact show us that among disasters in our countries, in Turkey, we should take tsunami into account as well. We learned that from this work, this guide, too, each museum should prepare its disaster risk management plans, taking into account staff, profile of visitors, for example, child museum, number of visitors, the type of collection exhibited and stored, different sections of museums such as conservation, restoration, laboratories, conference hall, cafeteria, etc. Museum building structures, its location, the history of the risk in the location or the region, possible sources of risk, potential risk of those sources, possible new risks. For example, tsunami in Seferihisar is the new risks for Turkey and Izmir. Okay. Risk management plan, which look on the paper, must be developed with the training and exercise together with the museum personnel and security guards. For these trainings and exercises, cooperation should be realized with the different national and international institutions, such as ICOM, ICOMOS-ICORP, and joint activities should be organized. We learned that for core principle, the contact information of the relatives of the museum personnel and security guards must be listed. Their communication should be provided after disaster. When they learn their family is in safe after disaster, they will focus better on the search, rescue, protection works. Thank you very much for your listening and for your attention.
I mute myself. So now, yes. Thank you very much for this very informative speech. It is true that information staying on paper, on booklets, on pamphlets, on brochures is something, but it's not everything. Of course, this information should pass to the users, to the experts in the field. And when I say experts, I don't only mean the real experts, but also the layman working in the museum as a guard, for example. So it's a big spectrum, and everybody should be responsible for his or her actions through training, through practice, through education, and continuous education, continuous practice, continuous training. And thank you very much for underlining these issues in your presentation. Now, we pass to our second speaker. Let me introduce her to you. Mrs. Fevziye Deniz Gündoğdu, a member of ICOM-Turkey and ICOMOS-ICORP. She's from Department of Restoration, General Directorate for Cultural Assets of Museums, Ministry of Culture and Tourism of the Republic of Turkey. Just a couple of words about her. She completed architecture education in 1997. She worked on categorization of architectural and constructional properties of traditional cultural heritage and systemizing repair and maintenance processes in Middle East Technical University and acquired the degree of Master of Science in Restoration. Later on, she studied, she acquired the degree of PhD in Restoration probably from the same university that was not listed here. In 2012, she started working at Directorate of Restoration and Monuments as a member of consulting team for Topkapı Royal Palace and Yıldız Royal Palace in Istanbul. For those of you who know Istanbul, will certainly be familiar with the names I spare. For the time being, in 2020, she was appointed to a new position in the General Directorate of Cultural Heritage and Museums within the ministry to act as a coordinator in national disaster risk plans. So we are in front of an expert here, and the content of her presentation will be about disaster management in museums within the context of preservation of historical buildings. So with these in mind, I would like to give floor to her, but I should first unmute her.
Mr. Dr. ÇAKAN?
Yes.
I'm Meliha Yaylalı. I think Miss Fevziye is not here now. I think she has connection problem. She is trying to connect. So yeah, we continue the next speaker.
Okay, if everybody...
I'm sorry for this.
Okay, no problem. These things arrive,
Thank you.
no problem. Then I have to look for the next speaker. Just a second, please. Let me check the program. Okay, then we continue with Nur Cenati Binti Ibrahim, Director of the State Museum Board of Perak, Malaysia. Of course, I need your permission. I hope you are ready to present your work. Mrs. Binti Ibrahim. Her paper is about disaster risk reduction in museums in Malaysia. She'll be covering 3 topics: a brief insight on history and geography, data on temperature and rainfall distribution in Malaysia. Then she will cover what are the risks faced by the museums in her country. And finally, she will talk about disaster planning and preparedness to reduce or mitigate these risks. The floor is yours, Nur Cenati. Please.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Murat. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon and at the same time, good morning.
Excuse me, madam.
Can you hear me?
Madam, excuse me. There is an echo. Most probably your cellular phone is very close to your computer. Could you please remove it? That might be the cause.
Okay, I'm sorry, sir.
No problem. Please go ahead. Now it's better.
Thank you, Dr. Murat. Thank you. Should I start again? Okay, good afternoon and good morning again. I think still morning there. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Kamarul Baharın, Director General, Department of Museum Malaysia, Chair of ICOM-Malaysia, for giving me this opportunity to present the paper today. Mr. Muhammad Akhter Javed, Chair ICOM-Pakistan, Meliha Yaylalı, Secretary General of ICOM-Turkey, Saadet, all the great speakers before me, and all my colleagues from the museum in Malaysia. Good afternoon. This paper, I will discuss on the disaster preparedness in the museum in Malaysia and action taken to minimize the extent of damage that it has caused, because this is an important aspect in ensuring records and artifacts of enduring values are preserved. Before we go further, I would like just to share a map of Malaysia. Just want to know, everybody want to know where about Malaysia is. In this world map, we are located at the equator, experiencing two seasons, two monsoon, southwest and northeast monsoon, with a temperature of over 27 degrees Celsius daily. And at the same time, can I go a little bit into the history of Malaysia so that it has also a connection on the type of buildings that in Malaysia that we have. You see, starting from 1786, when the island of Penang became first of 3 settlements in the Straits of Malacca to come under the control of the British East India Company, the Malay Peninsula became a sphere of increasing British influence up until the Japanese occupation in 1941. With the receding regional influence of the Dutch, direct and indirect British control over the territories of the Malay Peninsula was progressively extended after the signing of the Pangkor Treaty in 1874. By the start of the World War I, Malay rulers of all the peninsular states had accepted British protection. These states, together with Penang, Malacca, and Singapore, were collectively referred to as British Malaya, which comprised 3 loosely integrated entities: the Straits Settlement, the Federated Malay States, and the Under-Federated Malay States. While the Straits Settlement were administered directly as a crown colony, the territories that made up the other 2 entities were protected Malay states and remained normally under the sovereignty of their rulers, who retained certain rights such as the ability to ratify laws and to decide on Islamic matters. Apart from the museum, heritage building also can be categorized into traditional houses, mosques, palaces, government buildings, mansions and public buildings, archaeological sites, residential quarters, especially in Federal Malay State, built by British architects to marry the concept with Malay houses, the hybrid of British architecture and locals. Besides museum, these heritage buildings that we have to protect and making sure they are not destroyed by human errors. Even it is by the act of God, the stage of deterioration is to be kept minimum. Disaster is an emergency that occurs with little or no warning at all, causing more destruction or disruption of operations than the museum can correct by application of its own ordinary resources. Disaster preparedness is possessing in advance the capability of taking the immediate action or actions to occur or to minimize its impact. According to the Articles 1.6 and 2.21 of ICOM Code of Ethics for Museum, stated that museum should protect the collection against natural and human-made disasters. There are 236 museums in Malaysia and may be facing different types of disaster. The most commonly disasters faced by the museums in Malaysia are flood, fire. We had seen 2 museums being ravaged by fire. That is part of the Department of Museum of Malaysia and also the Malaysia Armed Forces Museum in Port Dickson. Man-made that everybody knows that anything that could spark disasters or emergency situation, from uncapped ceilings that give way to to rain, keep pouring into the office, faulty office appliances, forgetfulness that could lead to many unexpected situations. There are many that I think it happened everywhere. This photos show fire that once broke out in a Department of Museum Malaysia. Many museums have a written and documented disaster planning, and I think some are still finalizing on the document, and many of the museums in Malaysia are already, I think, have taken action and prepared proper documentation for the other museums to follow. I would like to give an account on the flood that hit our museum, that is the historical complex of Pasir Salam, which is in Perak, a state north, on the north of Malaysia. This complex keeps preserved and exhibited records and artifacts on the struggle of the Malay against British administration in the late 19th century. A good collection of crates are kept on the lower ground of the building. There had been rains for a few days, but never had we thought the conditions will get so bad. The year 2014 had seen a very bad flood that has kept many of the states in Malaysia, and that involved many museums, was taken by surprise, and museums in Kelantan, Terengganu, Penang, Perak were very badly hit. For our case, there had been rains, as I informed earlier, but we never thought that the condition would get so bad. At about 4:30 in the evening, water suddenly gushed in and water level rose very rapidly. Fast action was taken, where all displays were quickly taken out from the showcases to a higher level of the museum. After 3 days, the water level was still at knee-line. After the flood had subsided, the whole area was left with very thick mud. The aftermath is a setback for the museum, as it could not proceed with its function. The museum had to be closed down to visitors for a long time. Action was taken to dispose of carpets covering the floor, together with some decorations that were damaged. The floors and paneling were badly soaked and had to be thrown out. The electrical system and other appliances was initially placed on the lower level and had to wait for checking or commissioning, as there are risks that water is still in the appliances in the ground. After the flood, we managed to take preventive measures by building a barrier around the building. Action was also taken to immediately prepare a list of priority of objects to be evacuated first. There will be insufficient time or resources to evacuate oversized objects or the ones that are extremely heavy, and therefore they had to be left in situ. And preparation is done in case of any flood, they will be fully covered. The tragedy had taught us one thing. It is for our museum and the other museums in Malaysia, that is to prepare and get ready for any unprecedented disaster. Preparation is to include finding safe location and route, to create a team to handle the situation, to prepare emergency evaluation inventory, to gather supplies, to identify temporary workplace, and to get ready or have some contact for safe transportation. The past experience had made us unready for the flood that was suddenly coming in. A disaster preparedness starts with small action and simple procedure. A good and daily maintenance could help reducing bigger incidents. To have a written plan or maintenance procedure where the building and assets are thoroughly checked helps to reduce disaster. Assessing and checking on the building for any opening or even for any broken displaced wiring would help save losing all the valuable reports and artifacts of enduring values. Future buildings of museums should also consider preparing detail at planning stage before and during the process of building and during handover. The detailed written and documented procedures will help in ensuring the museum buildings are safe. The records and artifacts are proof of our being, our culture and civilization. The collection speaks volume. Thank you and wassalam.
Thank you very much, Madam. Mrs. Gündoğdu is back. However, I don't know if she is ready for sharing her presentation. Can you hear us, Mrs. Gündoğdu?
Yes, I can hear you and I'm ready.
Okay, perfect. So could you please upload your presentation?
Actually, I've sent it to you, but it's taking time.
Okay.
I pressed share screen, but
click on share screen.
This one, okay.
Yeah, but the presentation should be open already.
It is open right now. Can you see?
Perfect. Could you please introduce yourself so that we do not lose time? I was gonna do that, but because of this,
I work in.
Please.
I work in Ministry of Culture and Tourism. I worked in both preservation councils and where we approve all sorts of applications in cultural heritage. And then I worked in Directorate of Restoration and Monuments, where we restore and build buildings of the ministry, and museums are included.
Okay.
And now I work in the General Directorate of Cultural Heritage and Museums in restoration departments. Here we, how can I say, we deal with restoration of special buildings and areas like World Heritage Sites, special buildings, buildings that need extra attention, special restoration projects like how we carried some cultural heritage in Ilıca. I don't know if you heard about it. We had to carry some tombs and other buildings because it was a water collection site for a recent dam. However, last year we started a new section, a disaster management unit. We started studying to work on disaster management for cultural heritage. But in the meantime, we are trying to manage disasters within the ministry for the moment. We have started a big project about museums, or what to do during a disaster, how to carry their artifacts and where to carry them, who will do that, who will do what, a disaster management project as such we are trying to do. And in the meantime, we have also started a project of risk detection of our municipality, the buildings of the ministry. But we had to make a halt in these projects because of COVID-19. That's another disaster. And here I am. And can you tell me what I had to press here? Okay. Okay.
You see on the right hand side, right bottom
okay.
side.
Okay, I found it. Different program. And also, I have to say, I worked with Professor Zeynep Ünal on disaster risk management of cultural heritage settlements as my PhD. She's the one who got me into these things, actually. As we know, actually, I'm not, what I do in museums is I design them. And I don't design the exhibition, I design the building. That's my whole relation with the museums. Maybe I'm the only, one of the few people here who are not actually a museum person. But we work with museums. And we are well aware of the great cultural, historical, ethnological value that they have to house and they have to preserve. And we also are aware of the conflict of preservation of the building, preservation of the artifacts, and controlling the visitors. These are examples from Ankara museums. But behind the screen, there is an enormous load of technical infrastructure in these museums. We have to watch them with cameras. We have to have water in the building for fire suppression. We have to detect fire. We have to preserve the building to secure it in case of an earthquake or an explosion. We have to secure artifacts in case of an earthquake. We have to make people go around safely and keep them out of storage areas and critical technical rooms. These are all means of design, but also they are a great load for the building. And what happens when our building is something like this? This is the building is an asset itself. So when we are turning a building of such into a museum, we have to, in every step, we have to keep in mind, bear in mind that these buildings are have no less value than the artifacts that they are housing. Unfortunately, we forget it lots of the time. These are some building types actually used as museums. Okay, what you see is the right-hand side as a visitor, but over the ceiling and below the flooring, we have these systems. We have to store these tubes. We have to pass water pipes, which bear an enormous amount of pressure within. Also, we have to choose the system appropriate for the artifact. For example, if your artifact is mostly organic, like, for example, our Yıldız Palace, we had displayed furniture and paper products. We couldn't use water, and we couldn't use gas systems because they are wooden skeleton buildings, and gas systems cannot stay in the building. They leak out. So we came out with the idea of water mist system. This is one idea. By the way, the right-hand side museum is Troy, not Yıldız Palace, but just as an example. This is Yıldız Palace. The left upper side is what you see when you go to the museum. What you don't see is when you look up, okay, this has moved a bit, but this fire detection system, and even a smaller part is what you see below in the flooring. These are water pipes. And the nozzle for this is very small, and you won't see it when you look up. The places of the nozzles are very thoroughly calculated so that they don't come to critical points in the ceilings. Okay, these are some security systems, cameras and fire detection systems. And in a museum, you have to light the object well. You have to create a dramatic effect. But in order to do that, you need cables, lots and lots of cables and wires. I have to mention that these wires, if not planned carefully, they are main cause of fire in a building. And you have to cut through walls and do all sorts of things to the building to be able to create that dramatic effect. That's really a challenge. And you have all these spaces. You need these spaces in a museum. You need a camera room, you need a place for the rack, you have to ventilate it, you have to have electric booths and everything, and you have to keep them out of the way and sight of the visitors, and also you have to place them in a way not to harm the building. Like you see all wires everywhere. These are again some museums. Sorry, these are stayed here. Okay, my first point is, actually, do we have to use historical buildings for this enormous function, for this function which requires an enormous infrastructure? Do we have to really force these buildings so much? I know this is like this all around the world. Okay, this building is nice, it's historical, and the first function that comes in mind is that it should be a museum. The building can be a museum, but it should exhibit itself. Using it for exhibition of artifacts is something different. And when we go to a museum, we just see the exhibition area, but it's not all. We have storage areas, as I said, we have camera rooms, we have store for the fire systems. We need space for the staff, and the staff will use computers, and then all that electricity, all that wiring is really something. At the moment, I work in a museum for the restoration of a museum in Trabzon, and it's really a challenge. We have to punch holes through walls to be able to secure the artifacts within the museum. Okay, these are the enormous spaces that you require for a museum. And also, there's this, again, security is another challenge, is to make security invisible. We have to have a secure entrance and exit to and from the building. And for that, you shouldn't obstacle the building itself. In a historical building, like this is Hagia Sophia that you see on the left-hand side. The left bottom is the stables for horse guards. We have horses in Topkapı Palace, and they need stables, the horses. So we have to keep them somewhere out of sight of tourists. And you see what on the right bottom side is lodges of the security staff. They have to change their clothes somewhere. They have to rest. And all these spaces are needed. And also another thing that I have to draw your attention to is that a critical historical building which is important for the cultural life of that society, like the building that you see on the right hand side is a Ziya Gökalp Museum in Diyarbakır. It was one of the first targets during conflict in Diyarbakır. It was the first target of the terrorist attack. And because the building itself is a potential target for during such a conflict or a terrorist attack, the artifacts that they have stored in the building is also lost. So that should be taken into account as well when you're choosing a museum. The left-hand side is during the explosion in a terrorist attack again in Istanbul. It's an historical area. There was a synagogue there, so they chose that area for the bomb. When life loss, when people have been carried to hospitals and all, and after all that, what we have remaining was the left-hand side scene. Most of the buildings had lost their architectural features after the explosion. And there are museums there, private museums mostly. Again, a fire. This is Haydarpaşa train station. There was a fire during a restoration. And actually this is supposed to be there. We have restoration as means of disaster risk reduction. For example, these are examples from Topkapı Palace. Retrofitting is important in a museum to be able to keep the artifacts safe, but it should be designed very carefully because mostly most of the intervention in Topkapı Palace had been done because it was supposed to be used as a museum and because they believed that the wooden domes would easily catch fire, so they had to be built of reinforced concrete. So they removed all the wooden roofs and they made them reinforced concrete. And in the end, it posed some great problem for the building. So we just had to remove these domes to replace with wooden domes again. These are some interventions. Or a tree you just happen to plant there might at some time grow some enormous roots and destroy walls of the buildings like you see. And during restoration, we have to keep the artifacts safe, but we have to keep the building safe as well. So we prefer to not to retrofit actually. We prefer to eliminate. How can I put it? We prefer to eliminate the time effects on the buildings, actually, because they have been designed traditionally to avoid disasters, to avoid fire, to avoid floods and earthquakes. So we have to just maintain that the building is as it is built, and that the environmental conditions, the conditions around the buildings have not changed to pose some stress to the building. But during a restoration work, you have to be very careful, like I don't know if you can see the fire extinguisher here. We always have to keep fire extinguishers next to us during the restoration because normally normal systems are not working during a restoration. All electricity is cut off. So on the right-hand side is what you have if you don't be careful, if you're not careful, and as a result, you will lose many artifacts that are stored in the building. Again, some restoration examples. And this is one of the, this is again Topkapı Palace, the Fatih Mansion, the first building of the Topkapı Palace. Again, the domes had been replaced by reinforced concrete, and they caused the building to slide. For that, before removing the domes, we have reinforced the ground by placing, as you can see down, these reinforced concrete walls to keep the slope from sliding down, and then we remove the domes. And then we repaired the cracks of the building, because the reason of the crack was the domes, actually. This building is the treasury of Topkapı Palace. It was housing the most important pieces of the Topkapı Palace. And if we had not started restoration and realized these cracks, they will be lost. This is all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Gündoğdu. Magnificent presentation. Magnificent because you have shown us, you have brought us face to face with an enormous background. What we see usually is the facade of the buildings, and what is shown to us. We are, of course, amazed by the richness, archaeological, ethnographical, cultural, everything. But behind that facade, there exists an enormous amount of work, a very complex structure. Myself, I am an engineer, so I am also trying to work in this field, combining the presentation part and the management part, and the structural part, and the HVAC part together. So that's a very difficult issue. I congratulate you for showing us lots of detailed pictures. And by that, with that, I'm going to pass to our last presenter of this session, Mrs. Qureshi. Let me just, can you please, yes, thank you. Yes, Mrs. Qureshi is from Pakistan, I hope I don't misspell it, from ICOM-Pakistan. Am I right, Mrs. Güner? Yes.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum. Yes, I'm from Pakistan. Yes. I was just here as a visitor. I think Zahida was going to be presenting this documentary, but it's an honor and a pleasure to be with you.
Yes. Okay. So let me check whether I'm making a mistake. Here on my notes, your name is written Faiza Hüseyin Qureshi. So I think it's, we will give you a little time, if it's possible for you, to share with us your thoughts, and then we will watch the video sent by your organization. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. This has really been an extremely informative session, and I'd like to congratulate the organizers of this forum, particularly the Turkish ICOM, the Malaysian ICOM, and the Iranian and the other organization from Turkey. I'm extremely grateful to Zahida from Pakistan. She's an ICOMOS member. I happen to be President ICOMOS-Pakistan, and Zahida is one of our most active young emerging professional. And she wanted to set up, so the only thing that I had on this, I said, why don't you share the film that we made with ICORP? ICORP was, as an organization, was introduced to me 2 years ago when I met Zeynep in Pakistan in a conference, and we decided to do a film on the episodes that took place in Swat Valley, which is the center of Gandhara heritage. We were under terrorist attacks in those days, and there was a lot of conflict, and the Taliban had taken over the place, and there were lots of activities, and they were bent on destroying anything that had to do with Gandhara heritage or any other religious activity. So I think the film will be self-explanatory. This film was essentially shot by ICOMOS-Pakistan when Zeynep and her team was filming the ICORP documentary. They didn't come for the land. So it was a contribution of ICOMOS-Pakistan in seeing how ICORP was doing the filming. And I hope everybody enjoys this. And it was indeed an eye-opener, because when we were doing the script for it and I did the research for it, and we found out that it was not so much the state which was concerned about the heritage, it was the local community which was more concerned, and they are the ones who took the foremost, and they were really forthcoming, from local teachers to local people just interested in heritage, journalists, the people working in the museums, how attached they were to their culture and to their heritage, and to the fact that they owned their culture. And I think that was something which is a tremendous eye-opener. And I think ICORP on the Road filmed it very well also when we interviewed a lot of these people. And I now leave it to you for everybody to see the film. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Qureshi. What you said is extremely important. In your case, in Pakistan case, apparently the grassroots movement is extremely strong. Usually we do not expect to see such behavior from the state right away. But what is more important, as you said, is the reaction of local people and their attachment to their heritage. And this is wonderful what you said. And with this, I want to switch to film. Give me just 1 minute to upload it.
Sawat, one of the most beautiful valleys in Pakistan. Geographically, Sawat sits on the crossroads of the ancient caravan trade routes. A naturally endowed site, and historically enriched with a multicultural heritage comprising archaeological sites dating back to the prehistoric period. Alexander's conquest, Gandhara, Kushan, Hindu, and Muslim period. Today, this pluralistic culture is visible in the ordinary lives which incorporate these age-old traditions in craft, music, food, and rituals. This area has been impacted by natural disasters, earthquakes, floods, and man-made conflicts and war. ICOMOS-ICORP on the road is an initiative to document post-disaster response of the local community to recover cultural heritage. ICOMOS-Pakistan, in collaboration with Institute of Architects, Pakistan, Peshawar chapter, did the investigation and research of the damage to the cultural heritage, specifically Gandhara heritage, during 2007 to 2008 occupation of the area by the Taliban. A six-member ICOM team from Turkey documented the heroic efforts of the local and their amazing stories through interviews conducted of teachers, headmasters, local historians, architects, and journalists. It all began when the Jahanabad Buddha rock carving, the second most revered site for Buddhists after Burma, Afghanistan, was dynamited by the Taliban in 2007. This was a wake-up call to the local community about the terrorist threat to heritage. Parvez Shaheen, a historian who lives in a small house where he can see the Jahanabad Buddha across the valley. He narrates the tragedy of the day in which he hears the sound of the blast and cries out to his wife that Lord Buddha has been blasted. Despite the dangers amidst the firing of the Taliban, he collects the fragments and saves them till the time when the Jahanabad Buddha is restored between 2012 and 2016. The next target was the Swat Museum. A blast outside the museum came as a warning that the intention of the Taliban was to destroy the museum, which housed some of the most valuable artifacts of the Gandhara period. Knowing that the museum building could not be secured from the intentions of the Taliban, the only option available was to secure the artifacts by moving them out of the museum into a more secure location. In the dead of the night, containers were secretly packed with artifacts and were transported to Taxila Museum in Punjab, 200 kilometers away. This heroic action by the employees of the Department of Archaeology saved the over 2,000 precious artifacts. The Swat Museum was given a new lease of life in 2012 when the museum building was rehabilitated and reconstructed with assistance from the Italian government, who designed a new master plan and new artifact displays. Today, this museum is comparable to any museum of the world. Usman Isyar, a patron of art and culture, lives just across the archaeological site of Sebu Sharif Stupa. He spent years protecting the site from vandalism by locals and tourists, and teaching local children how to safeguard and protect the archaeological ruins. He was also the target of the Taliban. One day he realizes that for the past couple of days, as per routine, the children who were daily visitors have not been coming to the site. Upon investigation of the site with his son, he sees that the Sebu Sharif Stupa is littered with explosives and IEDs, with the intent to blow up the site. With aid from the various bomb disposal squads, using mobile phone lights and car headlights in the thick of the night, they managed to defuse the IEDs and mines and save the stupa from being destroyed. The Taliban began a violent campaign against education for girls and imposed an edict in January 2009 to close all girls' schools. over 900 girls' schools were forced to close, 400 schools destroyed, and over 120,000 girls stopped attending school. About 8,000 female teachers were driven out of work. Today, school teachers are taking girl students for site visits outside the walls of the schools to Kandahar sites, inculcating a sense of history and significance of our history. The sites of Saadet today are a standing evidence of their actions. In their courageous protection of these sites, the people of Saadet promoted love, peace, and religious harmony, while preserving the tangible and intangible cultural heritage of the region for the future generations. ICOM on the Road documentary, episode 4, Saadet, Pakistan, will be released at the end of 2019.
Well, what can I say? A wonderful documentary. My sincerest thanks goes to Professor Ünal, Zeynep Ünal. Wonderful. It shows a magnificent sight, beauties of Pakistan, both cultural and natural. I hope these kind of documentaries, these kind of informative sources would multiply in the future with our collaboration. Now, I think we come to the end of today's session. I am not entitled to say a lot of words because of my background. It's you who are experts in this manner, in these issues. So with my most humble modesty, I would like to leave the floor to first Mrs. Güner, who would close the session. And with your permission, I haven't alerted them, but I would like to also give a couple of minutes to Mrs. Ünal, Zeynep Ünal, and Mrs. Golsabahi, Madame Golsabahi, to say a couple of words about the performance of today's sessions. So see you tomorrow from my side, of course. And yes, Mrs. Güner, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, participants. Thank you for your nice, kind presence. Your participation is benefit for this conference. Thank you. And I would like to add one sentence, please. As Dr. Javed said, the mastermind of this conference, I wish this joint work may become a historical example and cooperation, solidarity, dialogue, and sharing. I hope it sets an example to the whole world for the protection of the cultural heritage for present and future generation. Thank you very much. See you soon tomorrow at the ICOM-Turkey station. Thank you.
But Mrs. Güner, let me remind you one thing. Would you please remind our participants at what time our sessions will start, just in case they may not look at the program? Could you please say it? Of course.
Turkish time.
Yes.
Okay. Turkish time at 1. Meliha Yaylalı is that? Turkish time in 1 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Could you confirm, please, Meliha Yaylalı? You can continue, please.
Yes, our tomorrow webinar will start 1 p.m. For Turkish time and 3 p.m. for Pakistan time and 6 p.m. for Malaysia time.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mrs. Yaylalı.
Thank you.
Mrs. Ünver, would you care to say something?
I think it's me.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Actually, when I follow the whole session, I have a strong feeling that all of these efforts is underlined that this is not more a kind of work you feel that you need to do, but it is more like to feel responsible, not only for you, but also the without borders who touch to this protection of heritage issue and understand the effect of not only this time, but also for the future. Actually, it's, I remember that when we filmed in Pakistan, it was two interview touched me too much. One, Fauzia says that then we figure out that they didn't come for the land, they come for our culture. That was very actually precisely explain why is important. And another one of the curator explained that we asked him that, didn't you scare that you are putting your life in danger, and why you did that? I mean, under the fire, you try to remove the objects from one place to another. And he says that because I will die and I'm not immortal, but all of these artifacts, all of these things, more than just an object, it is show that who we are belongs to. And it's not important to be a Muslim or to be a Buddhist, because this is a part of our layer. This is one of our layer, not upper layer. And if we lose that part, we lose our fundamental part. And I think during our 6 episodes all around the world, we saw that the people who feel responsible will change the world. And I would like to thank you once more to all ICOM family and the KUMID for this outstanding work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Ünal. Thank you very much. And Mrs. Golsabahi, would you care for a couple of words before closing?
Yes, actually, first of all, I want to thank your chairing. Thank you so much for all your efforts. And thank you for all national committees to prepare such a professional program, virtual conference. Thank you very much for presenters. All the presenters actually presented their subjects in a very unique way, very informative and professional. And I hope all of us together go forward jointly for a better future, for more collaborations and for sharing knowledge, raising our experience together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. With that, I want to close today's session. However, you may have a last-minute question, a last-minute comment. So for those of you who would like to deliver comments or questions or criticisms, the floor now is open for them. If there are anybody like this, please go ahead. Okay. If not, thank you once again for sharing your attention with us, and see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. Turkish time. Bye-bye. Have a very nice day.
Thank
Goodbye,
you.
Saadet.
Good night, Javed.
Bye-bye.
What do you think about?
It's perfect. Was perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye.